Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Nations round number 39, driving in the Mazda MX5 touring car at Tsukuba. Now this combination I was struggling on. I think I was struggling in general on the game between patch 1.43 and patch 1.44, I believe it is. Had a bit of a moment where I just couldn't find any speed in the game. Thankfully, it seems to have come back since patch 1.44. The pace seems to have come back, getting less on this here, and everything feels a bit better. So for this race, we're starting quite far back. However, we've got our best friend driving in this race. However, he's way away from me. Not going to really get in my way at all because he's starting from P7, I believe it is, which obviously is a reasonably starting position. However, what you're about to witness in this race pretty early on is one of the worst things I've seen a driver do in these races. TG Tenka, obviously, very, very fast driver. However, I believe he's probably worse than Momoz, and this isn't me joking around. I think what the type of driving that I see him doing, now I've seen him doing driving, and what you're going to witness in this, I've seen him doing stuff like this pretty much for over a year and a half. I mean, I remember a race in the top 24 at Circuit de la Sarthe. It was obviously streamed live by Gran Turismo, and he completely wiped out. He just basically came from. He started at the back, I think it was. His qualifying was pretty poor. Started at P19 or something like that, and he just dived through about 6-7 cars that start pushing everyone out of the way. And that's where a lot of this has come from. My lack of respect for TG Tenka, I'd like to call it. But what you're going to see in this race was probably one of the worst things you'll see in a top split race. Now I know this thing does happen in lower splits race, but it shouldn't happen in any. I know that obviously it does happen in lower splits more often, and people are probably used to seeing this type of thing, but it shouldn't be a thing at all, really. I really wish that Polyphony would find some sort of system to be able to report stuff like what you're going to see in this, because it was disgusting. The amount of drivers' races that he ruined was not on, and I really hope that the drivers that he did ruin actually recorded the footage and sent it directly to Polyphony, because I do know that at least one of them drivers would have had the ability to do that. As we're going to see the start of the race, starting down in P14, we've got Nisman behind us. Main aim for me was really just to try and keep it clean on turn 1. I didn't want to outbrake myself, so what you're going to see is I brake very early. I thought that the Twix livery, I love that livery, was going to come over across me, but he didn't actually. Braked quite late and went around the outside, so I stayed very narrow to the apex. Had a little moment there, nearly lost the rear started to step out, gave Nisman a little nudge, but gave him space on that left hand side just so he's got the room to go down that left hand side, because I kind of predicted that this situation would have a lot of 2x2s through this left hand corner because it goes quite wide. It tends to have multiple lines as they're Dilson nearly losing the rear. We're going to just try and hang on to the rear of him, but he brakes very early into that right hand corner. I give him a little nudge there, but let him go ahead, and then Nisman actually takes advantage of that and gets down that left hand side, and so I'm just trying to hold on to the car. But then we have a bit of chaos up here. We've got cars going off up ahead. We've got a blue MX5 that just comes from nowhere, just outbrakes himself and nearly wipes out a few drivers. But that actually, in the end, I come out of that in P11, which I was actually amazed at. Somehow got through without any penalties, nothing. You can see I was quite amazed. You can see my reaction. But let's have a little watch what happened here. This wasn't the main incident what I'm going to show you, but it was actually the same place as what we're going to show you from Tenka. But from this position, we look behind and we see the blue MX5. I think he just outbraked himself, tried to go up the inside, braked way too late, nudged me out of the way, bangs into the side of Nisman. So really unfortunate for Nisman there, because he probably would have came out that corner dead level with myself, and it would have been a drag race up the main straight. But unfortunately for Nisman, obviously he lost out a few places there. I kind of gained out of that, but I don't really want to gain out of that. But let's go back and see why them other cars were off the track with that incident. So we're going to ride on board with Tenka. We've got Etty Carton in P8 there, going around the outside, outbrakes Tenka, trying to carry the speed around the outside. Tenka basically does what he always does, he just pushes people off, giving no respect to space. You can see what I did to Nisman. I gave Nisman the space to go down that left hand side because he was on that left. But then into the braking zone, Etty Carton sees the gap. A fair move, I believe. There was a bit of contact, but it wasn't aggressive enough to warrant any sort of reaction, in my personal opinion. I think Etty Carton saw the gap, braked later, took the racing line and got himself in position. And TRLO obviously trying to take advantage as well, gives Tenka a little nudge, and TRLO up a position as well. But now watch this, 100% on purpose, takes Etty Carton. I was absolutely shocked when I saw this. Just watch this now. So he takes Eddie Carton out, who then rebounds into Williams Adam, who then spins because of it and nudges into the PR1 driver. So watch them, what happens to the PR1 driver. Like, totally disgusting driving from Tenka. People say that, you know, you can't ban people on games, but this is FIA racing. These drivers are fighting for a top spot in the World Tour event, and you've got Tenka doing this kind of thing. Watch, we're on board with the PR1 driver here now. Look at that, disgusting. And then watch what happens to the PR1 driver because of that, because of the contact from behind. This really highlights how crap the penalty system is on GT Sport. I mean, the fact that the PR1 driver got a 5-second penalty for that incident is pretty disgusting, and it's laughable that he actually got a 5-second penalty in that situation. Obviously, I'm going to gain from this. However, I don't want to be gaining in that kind of way through other drivers being as dirty as what we've just seen TG Tenka. I mean, he completely floored it straight through the corner, aimed for Eddie Carton. It was 100% deliberate. There was none of this, you know, it was an overtake. That was 100% a takeout, and something I don't like seeing. I believe that would warrant a ban on games like iRacing. You would be getting banned for doing that, and probably, especially with what else you're going to see during this race from TG Tenka, it would warrant some sort of action from iRacing. But GT Sport tend to be, I don't know how their report system works, whether they get any sort of notification of how many people get a certain amount of reports and then they consider taking action, or I have no idea how the servers are working. You know, these races, apparently they can watch these races from their studio. I believe that's what I've been told, that they do sometimes watch the top split races because they can actually go onto them and access them. Probably why we get disconnects all the time. But as you see there, PR1 driver taking the penalty with that 5-second penalty. I move up to P10, but let's just see what happens in the future, whether they take any action towards Tenka. I think he should have some sort of action. You know, it is a possibility that Tenka could qualify for one of these World Tour events one day. I mean, he finished quite high up in the Nations, and for a driver like that to make it through to a World Tour event, I think would be laughable, because it shouldn't be happening. As we go through turn 1 now, just trying to brake nice and early. Again, you can see I'm not particularly strong in this track, but one area I was quite strong was turn 1. I was able to get through first sector quite well, and it was actually keeping me in the slipstream because I was gaining a temp, which was then dragging me down that straight, that little straight, just to give me a bit of time. The drivers behind, P11 and P12, seem to be struggling quite a bit. You can see I'm nearly over basically a second ahead, and they seem to be losing a little bit of time to myself, even though the gap between myself and Dilster is very much equal to the gap that was to myself, to the driver behind. They seem to be losing a bit of time as we go through the purple sector there. Obviously no one's really put in any strong times yet. Obviously the first few laps in these races tends to be very chaotic, as was shown on lap 1 by a few late braking attempts, a few aggressive overtakes, but I think it was fair what Eddie Carton did. I don't think Tenka had any right to complain at that when we consider in the past what Tenka has done in terms of what he believes is a fair overtake. I'm really shocked that he reacted the way he did. He obviously lost the plot a bit and just thought, I'm just going to ruin his race, and ended up ruining more than one person's race. That's the annoying thing for me. He ruined Williams Adams' race and the PR1 driver's race, and I'm not sure if this was a final race of the day. I'm not 100% sure. It possibly was, or it possibly was the second slot of the day. I can't remember 100%. But either way, it's not fair that them drivers had their races ruined as we go through the very twisty section of this track in the MX5. I do love this car. It's an enjoyable car to drive. I do, like I say, I prefer it with the sports tyres on rather than the comfort tyres. I prefer having a little bit more grip. It's supposed to be a race car. It's a touring car, obviously the MX5 touring car. It's supposed to be used for racing. I believe it should have more grippy tyres than comfort softs. Comfort softs are basically what you'd have on your road cars. That's not what we should be racing with in a touring car. That's just my personal view. I know some people probably enjoyed the comfort tyres. I prefer them with the sports hard tyres. I think it drives a little bit more how it should do, with a bit more grip and a bit more stability. It still has a rear that will go loose, but I like the overall feel, a little bit more of having a bit more grip on the front end. I do tend to do better with the higher grip cars in general. As we go to start another lap in this race, nearly halfway through the race. I mean, we're on lap 5 already. This again highlights the issue with the shortness of these races. I believe this was one of the shorter races we've had in the FIA season. I think it was maybe 12 minutes long, something like that. Again, I would like them to start considering a minimum race length for FIA. In my opinion, there should be a minimum race length of 20 minutes. No race should be under 20 minutes in FIA, and I think they should go up to maybe 30 minutes. As long as they're between 20 and 30 minutes, I think we can add a pit stop in there and we can have strategy. These races just tend to be a sprint race. Qualifying very much determines it. Obviously, it determines it depending on if there's battling. Obviously, battling can cause issues. Like for myself, I gained 3 positions because Tenka lost the plot and wiped people out. But you can see as we're going through this race at the moment, there is a lot of static driving going on. You can't really gain too much at the moment. Obviously, when the grip is on the tyres at this stage of the race, there's still plenty of grip. People don't tend to struggle so much, especially in tops, where I know that as you go down the ranks, obviously, there'll be more overtaking opportunities because people will struggle a little bit more in certain areas of the race. Consistency is an issue in them races. But for the top of the higher tiers, like split 1, 2, and 3, etc., the racing is quite consistent, so you'll find that it's very hard to make any sort of gains. I didn't really have the pace here to stay with the drivers in front. However, that slipstream, the overpowered slipstream, is gaining on me as we see another car with a penalty. And yes, that is TG Tenka trying to put people off, weaving in front of them, trying to distract them through corners, basically being a bit of an arse, in my opinion. I really don't have anything nice to say about the person. The only thing I can say nice about him is he's very fast. He's got good race pace. His race pace, his qualifying pace is insane, but he has no racecraft. He has no respect for other drivers, and I don't think he deserves to be basically in these races. But to be honest, like the stuff that I've seen him doing now, I think he's done more than enough things for me to say he shouldn't be even allowed in these races. Polyphony needs to take action against drivers like that are wiping people out of these races. And the reason I say that is because I know this is a game. It's only a game, and it's, anyone can enter it and all that. But these races are there. It's a competition. There is a prize. There is, trips to these World Tour events that these drivers in these races, drivers that he wiped out in that race. Williams Adam is going to a World Tour event. Imagine if Williams Adam needed a P4 or P3 from this race to secure a World Tour event spot. He had to get that position, and then he got wiped out by TG Tenka doing that. Can you imagine how he would have felt? He would have been proper, he would have been really annoyed at that, and rightly so. You can't be doing stuff like that, what Tenka did in this race. And this is why I actually think that Tenka is probably worse than Momoz as a driver. Momoz has done quite a lot of bad things. It's been seen by many, but in my view, Tenka, as one of the fastest drivers, has more of a duty to be more respectful on the track. And from what I see from him, he can dish it out, but he can't take it back. And to react like that shows that he just doesn't have the discipline or the racecraft to be even competing for a World Tour event. And that's a worrying thing. Like I said before, he could make it through to a World Tour event, and that's quite worrying, I think. Imagine doing that at a World Tour event in front of thousands of people that are watching on these live streams. I don't think it would go down very well, and it would be a big risk for them to allow someone like that at a World Tour event. And that's why they need to start taking action on drivers that are doing these things, because you can't have a situation when you want sponsors involved, Michelin and all these other things that are getting involved with GT Sport and the World Tour event, and then seeing stuff like that. I think it would be really wrong. But in this race, you can see on lap 8, trying to hang on to Dilson. We actually got close every now and then, getting with him just around the half-second mark every now and then. But again, the rate, it just wasn't there. The ultimate pace to really get close enough to make a move wasn't there for me. I was struggling a little bit, so I was just trying to hang on really to this top 10 position. And I think I'm pretty sure this was the second slot race, although like I said, I can't 100% remember if it was a second slot race. I know I didn't race again. I just pretty much settled for my P10 and didn't fancy doing another race because I knew my pace wasn't there. But like I say, the pace has improved since patch 1.44, which seems to have solved some of the understeer issues I was having and the grip issues that I was getting, and the pace seems to have come back a bit. And obviously some of these combinations, just in general, were not very strong for me. But again, going through that first sector with purple sectors quite a lot really does show that my line was much different to a lot of other drivers through turn 1. The aim of that was because I was taking the shorter line, the tighter line, because I knew I'd then get in the slipstream down on the acceleration zone. So maybe without a slipstream, my line probably wouldn't have worked quite so much. But again, we see Tenka there just drifting around, trying to distract people, and generally being a bit silly. But I think he's just, I literally, nothing surprises me with this guy anymore. It just, when I was racing, I was actually laughing quite a lot during the stream, because he was deliberately trying to like weave in front of people on the braking zones and be distracting for them. And we all know how distracting a ghost can be, because for example, if you're doing time trial and your ghost is right in front of you in a braking zone, a lot of the time you'll get rid of it, you'll turn it off, because it gets really distracting. You don't want it there, and what you don't want is another driver doing that in the braking zone, someone who can really distract you like that. It's not nice to see. So coming through to the end of this race now, we're on P10, just 2 laps to go, very short race. You can see the time is it's not even on 11 minutes yet, so this race is going to be, I think it might actually be under 12 minutes, I'm not sure. Let's see as we come through. Oh, no, it will actually be just over 12 minutes by the time we get through to the end of the race, as we're now on the 11-minute mark. Closely following P9 and P8, you can see Nisman not able to really get close enough because he hasn't got the slipstream, so he's staying around 2.5 seconds back, but that shows you that his pace probably was strong enough really to be fighting at the front, because I think he might have actually been gaining on the leaders even though he didn't have any slipstream. But obviously P1, 2 and 3 are probably doing a lot of hard battling as well, so they're probably not running as fast as they should, because they're battling for obviously the lead of the race, probably doing a lot of side-by-side racing, because P1 will never have the slipstream, so the other cars are probably all over the rear of them as they go through the final lap. I think what you can see as well, the change of positions in that top, you see there P1 changing again, and it's switching around a lot, so shows you they're obviously battling hard. We're only 5 seconds behind that lead battle on the final lap. Lap 11 obviously, so we've not lost a massive amount, because we actually I think pretty much by turn 1 of the turn 2 or turn 3 we were probably about 4 or 5 seconds behind anyway, so we've not actually lost a massive amount of time through the race. But again, that is purely because of the slipstream, and that's been helping me out during this race. But just trying to keep it consistent, trying to stay out of trouble, as we now got Tenka doing donuts in the middle of the track. This is not what we want to see. People, in my personal opinion, I think people like to watch these races on YouTube and stuff like that, because the racing's in general very clean. It's got a lot of action in it, looks fairly, it's very much lifelike with the way that some of the racing goes on. I mean, there are issues with the settings and the length of the races, but we don't want to see drivers doing that. That's just my personal view. Hopefully Polyphony will do something about it and take action on drivers that are behaving the way that Tenka is in this race. I mean, maybe not a ban, maybe just a week ban off the game or something like that, just a temporary ban, just to warn them they need to sort their act out a bit. But we go over line in P10, fairly solid race, only just over 4 seconds behind P1. Not bad really, considering we started back from P14. We gained 4 positions in the race. I know that we'll have stronger combinations than this race was for myself, obviously when we get to the higher downforce cars. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. We'll be back with more catch-ups from the FIA season, getting towards the final race of the FIA season in Nations and Manufacturer. I've got to catch up just a few more races to go now before the new season starts, where I will be changing my manufacturer in the Manufacturer Championship. So I'll look forward to deciding what car I'll go, and I'll be sure to let you all know when I make that decision. Anyway, thanks again for watching, everyone. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'll be back soon. See you all soon.